and get the needful done for ailing health sector. Thank you, Chairman, sir.
Shri Sujit Kumar.
Thank you, sir. Sir, at the outset,
25 minutes.
thank you, sir. Sir, at the outset, I would like to convey the message of my party president, Sri Naveen Patnaik, with regards to the budget. And I quote him, BJP had put special category status in their manifesto as a promise to the people of Odisha. However, this promise has not been considered for Odisha, whereas special package allocating crores of funds have been announced for Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. Along with this, the demand of Odisha for revision of coal royalty, which has been pending for years with the central government, has been rejected, because of which the state would lose thousands of crores of revenue every year. Lots of big promises in different sectors were made to the people of Odisha during the election campaign, especially on agriculture, MSME and industry. There is no mention of any promise being fulfilled in this budget. This is a complete neglect of Odisha and their people. Today, the most serious issues being faced by the common public is inflation or price rise and unemployment. This budget does not have any considerable intervention to address these two major issues. I'm happy to see there is a focus on tourism in Odisha. I hope it is substantial and we shall await the details. I would say that along with the people of Odisha, I feel disappointed at the continued neglect of Odisha while the state contributes so much to the country. Unquote. Sir, people across the country are feeling very disappointed with this budget, and particularly people of Odisha are feeling let down with the budget pronouncements. Sir, Andhra and Bihar have received huge budget bonanza. To give some examples, sir, an outlay of 26,000 crore has been given to Bihar for road projects. 15,000 crore this fiscal and in future years for the development of the capital city of Amravati. Sir, central government has announced that it will support loans from multilateral agencies for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. The minister also announced a special backward region grant for 3 districts of Odisha. Sir, lest I am misunderstood, I would like to clarify that we don't grudge this budget bonanza for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. In fact, we are happy for our brothers and sisters from Andhra Pradesh and Bihar that they have got this budgetary support. But sir, why stepmotherly treatment for other states like Odisha? Why are we neglected? Sir, are we not part of Purvodaya, which Honorable Prime Minister has been talking about? Sir, why is appeasement to allies at the cost of states like Odisha, Jharkhand and other states? Sir, can we have a Vikasit Bharat? Can we have a Vikasit Bharat without having a Vikasit Odisha, without having a Vikasit Jharkhand? Sir, mention was made of KBK region of Odisha. I come from that part of Odisha, which is probably as backward as the 3 districts for which special grant has been announced in the budget. Why not special grant for KBK? Sir, don't other states also need loans and support from multilateral agencies? Will the central government support these other states also when they apply for loans from multilateral bodies? Sir, I shall be failing in my duty if I do not share the concerns that I have from the budget. And because this is the Council of State, it is my duty to also highlight the concern and the neglect of Odisha in the budget of 2024-25. Sir, ma'am, the first concern that I have is regarding R&D. As a nation, we spend less than 0.7% of our GDP on R&D, which is abysmally low. Comparable numbers, China 2, USA 3.06, South Korea 4.6, Israel 4.9. Tell me, how can we become a Vikasit Bharat without focusing on innovation and R&D? I'm so disappointed that this budget does not have adequate focus and priority for R&D. Second concern I have is with regards to education. And when it comes to spending on education and health, I'm reminded of French literature laureate André Gide, who said, everything that needs to be said has already been said. Everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again. Honorable Finance Minister last year in her budget speech listed out 7 priorities, what she called Saptarishis. I was very disappointed last year as well, ma'am, that education was not one of the Saptarishis. This year, she has articulated 9 priorities. Again, education is not one of the priority in her list. we all know, ma'am, that an investment in education is the foundation of a nation. Way back in the 1960s, the Kothari Commission, and now the new education policy of 2020 have been talking of investing at least 6% of our GDP on education. We are nowhere close to that. We are at best 3% of our GDP. If you add the state budget, then probably it will become 4% of GDP, nowhere near 6% of GDP. That has been recommended by Kothari Commission and also the new education policy. Ma'am, a small state like Odisha, last year, under the leadership of our then visionary Chief Minister, Sri Naveen Patnaik, allocated 13.2% of the state's GDP on education, which shows the commitment of the BJD government and conviction of the BJD party towards education. Ma'am, let me quote a few lines from the new education policy itself. The aim must be for India to have an education system by 2040 that is second to none, with equitable access to the highest quality education for all learners, regardless of socio-economic background, unquote. Ma'am, inadequate allocation to education does not match with these lofty goals of the NEP. And I'm afraid that the journey to 2040, which the NEP talks about, has started with a fractured leg. Instead of galloping to 2040, we will probably limp to 2040, ma'am. Again, the government has grossly under-prioritized spending on food and nutrition, particularly for children. Consider PM Poshan 2 and Saksham Anganwadi, two of the flagship schemes of the WCD Ministry of Government of India, Poshan 2 and Saksham Anganwadi. Last year, the RE revised estimate FY 23-24 was 21,523 crore for these two flagship schemes, which has been reduced to 21,200 crore in this year's BE, almost a reduction of over 300 crore from last year's allocation. Will this not show up in poorer learning and educational outcome? If you reduce the allocation for midday meal scheme, for Poshan, for Saksham Anganwadi, will that not reflect in poor learning outcome for our children, ma'am? Ma'am, the third concern I have is regarding defense. As a regional party, Biju Janata Dal, and our party president, Sri Naveen Patnaik, have always stood with successive governments when it comes to the nation's security, unity and integrity. We have always stood with the government in Delhi when it comes to defending our borders, when it comes to the unity and integrity of our country. Ma'am, at 6.22 lakh crore, which is roughly $75 billion US, the total allocation for defense marks a marginal hike of 4.79% from the BE of last year. According to Stockholm-based think tank, policy think tank called SIPRI, China spends over $300 billion on defense every year. And this is not even the official number, because the official numbers from China are unreliable, they are fudged. Unofficial estimates claim that China spends over $700 billion on defense. So that's the difference we are talking about, $75 billion in India and over $300 billion officially in China, unofficial $700 billion. This accounts to less than 2% of our GDP. Less than 2% of our GDP is spent on defense. Many parliamentary standing committees on defense have recommended that as a nation we should spend over at least 3% of our GDP on defense. Ma'am, we are extremely proud of our armed forces who are guarding our borders and giving us this safety net. Our armed forces have to be battle ready. They have to be constantly ready to meet any eventuality, particularly when we have a very belligerent, aggressive and hostile nation called China in our Indo-Tibet border. So this is why I urge the finance minister to ensure, I hope that they have done the maths, but I ensure that adequate funding is allocated to defense. My fourth concern is with regard to sports. At 3,442.32 crore, the budget for the sports ministry has only been marginally hiked by 45.36 crore from the previous year. Only a marginal increase of 45 crore. Ma'am, with this lousy focus on sports, no wonder we are not in the top 30 sporting countries in the world. A country aspiring to be a $5 trillion economy, spending less than $500 million on sport is certainly not encouraging, ma'am. We are talking of $5 trillion economy in the next 1 or 2 years, but we are spending less than $500 million on sports. Ma'am, it would not be out of place to bring to the attention of this House how Odisha has emerged as the sports hub of the country under the leadership of our visionary former Chief Minister Sri Naveen Patnaik. Odisha successfully hosted 2 Men Hockey World Cup, successfully, twice in a row. We built the world's largest hockey stadium in terms of seating capacity, called the Birsa Munda Hockey Stadium in Rourkela, which has made the entire nation proud. And Odisha is the first and only state to sponsor the men and women hockey team of the country. The fifth concern is with regards to unemployment. Ma'am, unemployment, as everyone would agree, is a very urgent and pressing issue facing the country. In fact, the economic survey which came out a couple of days ago has estimated that the Indian economy needs an average of 78.5 lakh jobs every year on an average until 2030 in the non-farm sector to cater to the rising workforce. 78.5 lakh jobs is what we need every year in the non-farm sector to meet the rising demand for employment. Ma'am, which sector creates job? It is the MSMEs. It is the MSMEs that create jobs for the country. It is the MSMEs that create wealth for the country. But unfortunately, we didn't see adequate focus on MSMEs in this budget. I'll give you some examples, ma'am. I'm happy that the Mudra loan ceiling has been hiked from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. Great. But ma'am, talk to any rural entrepreneur. Talk to any woman entrepreneur in the country. How difficult it is to access a Mudra loan. They will tell you horror stories. It is so difficult to access Mudra loan. So this hike in ceiling from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs, unfortunately, will not do much for rural entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs. We recommend that the government should provide preference in government contracts and tenders up to 20 crore to MSMEs, to local MSMEs. That will boost the local economy and the local ecosystem. We urge the government of India to hike the GST waiver for companies, which is now 20 lakhs to 2 crore. Finally, ma'am, MSMEs need relief from the compliance burden that they face. I'm so glad that the Honorable FM Finance Minister spoke of the Jan Vishwas Bill, Part 2, Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0. I request her and I request the government to expedite such a bill which will ensure that our MSMEs are not burdened with the compliances. Ma'am, I would like to make a mention of the gig workers. Today we have about 15 million gig workers in the country. Some estimates say that by 2030 we'll have 90 million, that is 9 crore gig workers in the country. We were expecting that in the budget speech, Honorable Finance Minister will announce a platform for gig workers, a fund for gig workers, where gig workers can register themselves. Today we do not know because companies are not mandated to register the gig workers. Companies like Zomato, companies like Ola, Uber, they are not mandated to register the gig workers. So we do not know whether the gig workers are employed or unemployed. I sincerely had hoped that the Honorable FM would have announced a fund and a platform where gig workers could have been registered. If numbers are to be believed, today less than 9 lakh gig workers are, only 9 lakhs, less than 9 lakh gig workers are registered. Whereas today we have about 1.5 crore, which will increase to about 9 crore by 2030. Ma'am, the reason I speak about gig workers is because they not only help generate employment, but the best part is that they bridge this gap in terms of gender unemployment. Because of the flexible working hours, more women are able to join as gig workers. And if we focus on such a database or on a fund for gig workers, then I think we can empower more women to enter our workforce. The sixth concern I have, ma'am, is with regards to internship and CSR issue. Ma'am, in our budget speech, the Honorable Finance Minister calls for top 500 corporations to bear 10% of the intensive cost from the CSR kitty. Madam, this is neither desirable nor is it acceptable from a legal point of view, because internship is something which benefits the company directly or indirectly. And to allow a company to adjust that against the CSR fund is not ethical. It's not desirable, because less money will be available from the CSR kitty to be spent on social sector, to be spent on charitable activities. So if you allow a company which will benefit from the internship to adjust that CSR money, then less money will be available for other activities, which is not desirable. Again, from a legal point of view, I think there is ambiguity in the legal regime, because the general statutory rules of 2021, and I read out, the CSR projects or programs or activities that benefit the employees of a company and their families shall not be considered as CSR activities in accordance with Section 135 of the Companies Act. So I'm reading out from the GSR, General Statutory Rules of 2021. And the Companies Act, Section 125, is very clear that anything that benefits the employees of the company or their family members cannot be considered as CSR. So I do not know how this, this budgetary pronouncement will be on the right side of law. Rather, what the government could have done is to mandate that the companies contribute from their actual salary expenditure and could have paid the interns. Ma'am, the seventh concern that I have is with regards to tourism. Now, all of us know that tourism is the growth engine of an economy. Tourism creates jobs, it brings in foreign exchange, you know, it has multiplier effect, and some studies have estimated that it contributes to 2.8% to our GDP directly and close to 9% to our GDP indirectly. And about 4 crore jobs are generated because of the tourism industry, which is roughly 8% of the total employment of the country. Now, I'm also heartened to note that the Honorable Finance Minister spoke of Odisha. She spoke of the abundant natural beauty. She spoke of the rich cultural legacy in Odisha, the majestic temple architecture, the classical dance, music, the pristine beaches. She spoke of the wildlife. So I would really thank her on behalf of people of Odisha for that. But similar to the announcement for Bihar, we were expecting a specific and structured package for development of tourism in Odisha, which was not there in the budget. I have a couple of suggestions, ma'am. Bali Yatra. Ma'am, the erstwhile name of Odisha is Kalinga. And Kalinga had a very rich and illustrious tradition of maritime history. The seafarers of Kalinga used to go as far as Java, Sumatra, Bali to trade. And to commemorate this glorious tradition of maritime history, every year in the month of November, a festival called Bali Yatra is celebrated in the historic city of Cuttack. Our leader, Sri Naveen Patnaik, has many a times urged the center to accord the status of a national maritime heritage to Odisha's Bali Yatra festival. In fact, when Honorable Prime Minister was in Bali for the G20 summit last year, I mean in 2022, he made a mention of Bali Yatra. So that is the importance and significance of this festival. But it has not been accorded the status of National Maritime Heritage Festival. I urge the government to to consider this request. Number 2, Dhanu Yatra. Madam, Dhanu Yatra is the world's largest open-air theatre. It's a theatrical festival celebrating Ras Leela, celebrating the life of Krishna, and it is the world's largest open-air theatre. It should be recognized as a national festival and included in the list of fairs and festivals of India. Odisha is the place that gave birth to a new religious cult called the Mahima Dharma, which talks of international well-being. It was popularized by Sant Bhima Bhoi with his immortal words, Praninka arato dukho, apramita dekhu dekhu keba sahu, mo jivana pache narke paditao jagata uddhara heu. Which means, how could one witness and bear with the plethora of plights of fellow human beings? Let the world get redeemed at my cost. Ma'am, these immortal words are inscribed on the walls of the United Nations in different languages. So the place of birth of Sant Bhima Bhai should also be developed. India is the origin of Buddhism. We all know, we are proud of this fact that India is the motherland of Buddhism. There are many Buddhist sites in India like Lalitgiri, Udayagiri, Ratnagiri, where you had Pushpagiri and Parimalgiri universities as recorded by the Chinese scholar Huan Sang. Now, this could be developed to attract tourists from East Asia and Southeast Asia particularly, and also a central university for the study of Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy should be established in Odisha. My last concern is with regards to the eighth concern is with regards to fiscal federalism. A lot has already been said about it, but I'll just quickly repeat. The size of the divisible pool of taxes has been going down. 15th Finance Commission had recommended that 41% of the divisible pool should be devolved to the states, but the actual share received by the states has been decreasing. In FY 22-23, it was 35.1%. In RE of FY 23-24, it was 36%. And in this year's BE, it is 35.5%, which is against the spirit of the Finance Commission, against the spirit of the federal structure of the Constitution. Ma'am, finally, I'll come to the neglect of Odisha. My party president, Naveen Patnaik, has time and again raised these issues of negligence with the past and present central government when it comes to tele-density, when it comes to national highway, when it comes to coastal highway, railway, when it comes to banking and cutting off funds for the scheduled areas and for KBK. Ma'am, we have been urging that special consideration to Odisha should be given when it comes to the disaster response fund. Every year, it's a known fact that now almost every year Odisha witnesses super cyclones or cyclones. So ma'am, we are requesting that the sharing pattern under the disaster response fund should be 90-10 at par with the Himalayan states against the 60-40 that is there today. Secondly, the Finance Commission also has recommended that a devolution of rupees 100 crores towards Odisha for drought prevention measures and rupees 800 crore for strengthening the early warning system should be sanctioned. Number two demand from Odisha. Ma'am, we have a 480 kilometers long coastline, but today we have only 3 ports, major port in Paradip and 2 minor ports in Gopalpur and Dhamra. Ma'am, there is possibility of developing many other ports, particularly in places like Astaranga, Subarnarekha, and a riverine port in Mahakalpada. This will hugely boost the economy of the state and also stimulate and create jobs. Third demand, ma'am, is with regards to the GST on Kendu leaves. Ma'am, Kendu leaf under the Forest Rights Act of 2006 can be collected by the tribal population because it has been categorized as a minor forest produce. Today, 18% GST is levied on Kendu leaf, which is putting a huge burden on the Kendu leaf pluckers, on the seasonal workers, on the binders, who are largely tribals. 10 lakh tribal population is dependent on this Kendu leaf economy. So we demand that this 18% GST should be waived on Kendu leaf, and this demand has also been raised many times by our honorable party president in different fora. He has also written to the union government many times on this. Fourth demand is with regards to revision of coal royalty. Ma'am, Odisha being a coal-bearing state is at the forefront of coal production in the country, thereby helping and assisting in the energy security of our nation. But I'm sorry to point out that the coal royalty rate has remained stuck at 14% since May of 2012. For last 12 years, there has been no revision in the coal royalty despite the inflation, despite the changing economic circumstances. Many a times, Naveen Patnaik has written to Union of India. Many a times, he has spoken to different union ministers for revision in the coal royalty structure, but it has fallen into deaf ears. Ma'am, it is urgently essential that we need to revise and review this coal royalty structure. Ma'am, banking facility today, 65% of Gram Panchayats in Odisha do not have banking facility. And if I talk of the KBK region where I come from, close to 75% of the GPs, Gram Panchayat, do not have banking facility. We need support there. Railways. Ma'am, you will be shocked to know that the rail density in Odisha is 18, whereas the national rail density is close to 22. Our neighboring states, they have much better rail density, and we are happy for them. But we also demand that railway networks should be enhanced in Odisha. Ma'am, East Coast Railway East Coast Railway generates 20,000 crore revenue from Odisha, but still our rail density is much lower. And if I come to the KBK area, which is a cluster of 8 districts, 7 of which are part of the aspirational district program of Niti Aayog. These 8 districts are largely tribal, largely LWE affected. The rail density is less than 10 in single digit.
Please wind up.
Ma'am,
Your time is over.
I'll wind up in 1 minute. So, ma'am, my party demands that there should be massive expansion of the rail network in Odisha and in the KBK region particularly, because connectivity is the lifeline of a nation. Connectivity is the backbone of the economy. Ma'am, some specific demand with regards to railway: Malkangiri to Bhadrachalam, Jaipur Malkangiri, Jaipur Navrangpur, Theruvali Gunpur, Kantamaji to Jaipur, Bargarh to Nuapada, and Lanjigarh Road to Fulbani are some of the railway projects that need immediate attention. Ma'am, last point.
Sir, kindly wind up.
Last point I'm winding up. Ma'am, there is announcement of construction of a loco workshop in a place called Nadla in Kalahandi district. We are clueless as to what's happening with that. There is no progress on that. So that is the final request. Ma'am, I'll conclude by saying that in the last 2 decades, Odisha has witnessed remarkable transformation, remarkable socio-economic transformation. But we are still not getting our due.
Shri
Ma'am,
Sanjay
instead
Yadav.
of acknowledging...
Shri Sanjay Yadav.